Min-jae Park had learned to smell fear before his targets ever felt it. Metallic, sharp, like blood oxidizing on rusted steel. Tonight, the warehouse reeked of it. Thick and heavy in the air. Fear was always in the background, lurking just out of sight. But tonight it was tangible, woven into the very fabric of the place. Ghost could taste it on his tongue. At 28, Ghost, he was known by no other name in the underworld, had perfected the art of becoming the last thing a person ever saw. No footsteps. No sound. No mercy. He moved through the darkness like a predator, his presence not just unseen but unfelt. The air grew heavier as he moved, thickening with each step, as if the darkness itself bowed to his will. Stealth was an illusion. Ghost didn't need to hide. He didn't need to wait. He simply arrived. His reputation like a specter had made sure of that. The warehouse was abandoned, a relic from Chicago's industrial heyday, when the city built things instead of destroying them. Rusted machines loomed like ancient monuments, silent and still in the blackened corners of the building. The smell of old oil and decaying concrete lingered in the air. Water pooled in the shadows, reflecting the faint emergency lights like distant stars in a forgotten sky. The walls, covered in peeling paint, sagged under the weight of time. It was a place for people to disappear. A place where no one would hear your screams. A place where you could vanish, never to be found. And tonight, Kai Johnson was about to vanish. Or run at best. Either way, the message would be sent. The boy had made a fundamental mistake. He believed stealing from the Kim organization would come with no consequences. 2 weeks ago, he'd been recruited as a runner, easy money they'd promised. Your family now, they'd said. That's what the handlers always said. That's what made the danger feel like an adventure. A high-risk thrill. But the Mafia wasn't a game, and Kai had missed the fine print. What they didn't tell him was that family in the Korean Mafia had an expiration date. And Kai's had just passed. Ghost climbed the metal staircase to the 4th floor without touching the railing. Each step was calculated, his weight distributed evenly so the metal wouldn't creak under his stride. The old building groaned under the weight of time, but Ghost? He was as silent as the shadows. His heart still as dead as it had been since the first kill. Outside, Chicago sprawled beneath the pre-dawn darkness, a sprawling mess of broken streets and fractured dreams. Sirens howled in the distance, but they were nothing more than background noise in a city that never slept. Inside, everything was still. Everything was cold. And everything was about to change. The office door was reinforced steel wrapped in wood. A fake exterior. A coward's protection for those who still believed appearances mattered. Ghost didn't care about appearances. He didn't care about anything but the task at hand. He produced a key from his coat pocket. The organization made sure all their facilities were accessible only to those they trusted. A small twist of the key and the door swung open without a sound. Kai sat at the desk, legs bouncing with nervous energy, his thumb frantically scrolling through his phone. The boy's hands were shaking, and that was a good sign. Fear made people fidget, made them search for distractions in small, meaningless things. Kai's fear tasted sweet in the air, like honey mixed with vinegar. The boy was no different from the others who thought they could outrun their debts. No one ever did. Ghost closed the door softly behind him, but Kai didn't notice. His head was down, focused on whatever game he was playing. His mind was clearly elsewhere, far from the danger that was closing in on him. I was starting to think they weren't coming, Kai said, his voice trying and failing to be casual. But there was a crack in it, fear crackling at the edges like static. He was lying, trying to convince himself that everything was fine. My manager said I'd meet with someone. Boss wants me to explain about the... Kai's voice faltered as he finally looked up. The phone slipped from his hand, landing with a soft clink against the floor. Standing in the doorway was Ghost. Backlit by the ambient glow of the city below, he looked like a figure from a nightmare. His black turtleneck and coat blended seamlessly into the shadows, and his eyes that were as black as the night, held nothing but emptiness. There was no reflection in them. No soul. Just void. Kai's throat tightened. His pulse jumped. His whole body was paralyzed by the sight of him. He should have felt the fear first, but the shock of seeing nothing in Ghost's eyes hit him like a freight train. Ghost wasn't human. Not anymore. Who are you? Kai's voice was higher than it should have been. A squeak that betrayed his fear. Ghost stepped forward, his movements deliberate, calculated. "The end," he said, voice cold. "Of your second chances." The room seemed to shrink. Kai instinctively pushed back, his chair scraping across the old wooden floor. His hand shot toward the desk drawer, groping for something, anything. A gun. A knife. Some tool of defense. But Ghost was already there, his grip on Kai's wrist like iron, crushing bone against bone. Kai screamed, the sound raw and desperate, but it didn't matter. It was just noise to Ghost. Ghost's free hand moved with precision, a lightning-fast strike aimed directly at Kai's chest. The blow would have ended everything in an instant. But he stopped. Not mercy. Calculation. He released Kai's wrist, stepping back. The boy collapsed back into the chair, gasping, eyes wide with the kind of terror that could rewrite a person's soul. Ghost could almost see the boy's nervous system rebooting, panic scrambling every thought. Kai wasn't just afraid of dying. He was afraid of everything. Of losing it all. Of disappearing into the darkness like so many before him. "You have 12 hours, Ghost said, his voice as cold as steel. Run. Get out of Chicago. Change your name. Disappear so completely that when your mother passes the street you used to walk on, she'll feel like a stranger." Kai's breath hitched. His mind was scrambling to catch up. "Please. I didn't. It was a mistake. I swear." "I know," Ghost said. "That's why you get 12 hours instead of none." He turned to leave but stopped in the doorway. "Wait," Kai croaked. His voice cracked, a desperate plea. "Why are you telling me this? Why not just?" Ghost paused. He reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph, sliding it onto the desk in front of Kai. The boy's trembling fingers reached for it, and when he saw the image, his entire body went rigid. A woman. Sleeping. Vulnerable. Unaware. "Because the organization wants to teach you something," Ghost said, his voice softer now but no less chilling. "They want you to understand that running doesn't save you. Just spreads the danger. Everyone you love becomes a liability. Everyone you touch becomes a target." He tapped the photo once softly. "That's your mother, Kai. Nyota Johnson. She works at Northwestern Memorial. Double shifts. Has for 12 years. We know exactly where she is when she's there, and how to reach her if you disappoint me." Kai's face drained of color, his mind spiraling into a panic he couldn't outrun. "The 12 hours isn't mercy," Ghost continued, his voice a stone. "It's a message. To you. To her. To everyone in this city who thinks they can steal from us and walk away clean." Ghost left before Kai could say anything more. But the boy didn't move. Didn't even blink. He just stared at the photograph of his mother, knowing that if he didn't do exactly what Ghost wanted, she would be the next target. And unlike him, she wouldn't get 12 hours. Nyota Johnson's shift at Northwestern Memorial had ended at 6 a.m., but sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd worked the night rotation. 12 hours of fluorescent lights, angry insurance companies, and patients whose pain had leaked into the administrative side of the hospital. Medical records didn't care about suffering. Insurance claims didn't care about desperate families. The system processed tragedy the same way it processed paperwork. Efficiently, coldly, and without mercy. She'd made it home by 6:47 a.m. The apartment was quiet in that particular way that meant something was wrong. Nyota had lived long enough to recognize the silence of absence. She moved through the space, kitchen, living room, hallway, calling Kai's name with increasing urgency. His room was empty. His bed hadn't been slept in. Nyota's hands started shaking before her mind could catch up. She called his cell phone. Straight to voicemail. She called his best friend Marcus. Haven't seen him since yesterday, Ms. N. She called the school. He hadn't shown up for classes. She called the hospital and told them she wouldn't be coming back today, that she had a family emergency, and she hung up before they could respond. By 8:15 a.m. the police were at her door. The officer was a white man in his 50s with tired eyes and a tone that suggested he'd delivered this news 1,000 times before. Missing persons cases in Chicago were a dime a dozen. Another black kid gone. Another family falling apart. It was the city's background hum. The sound of lives disappearing into the machinery of poverty and crime. "Can you tell us anything about Kai's associates?" the officer asked, his notepad already open. Nyota wanted to lie. Wanted to say her son was a good boy with good friends, that he spent his time on homework and basketball, that he was safe. But the officer's eyes told her he already knew the truth. Korean, she said quietly. I warned him. God, how many times did I warn him? But he said the money was good, that they treated him like family, that... She couldn't finish the sentence. The officer exchanged a look with his partner. Korean Mafia. That changed things. That meant this wasn't a teenage runaway or a kidnapping for ransom. That meant this was the underworld collecting on debts, literal or symbolic. Do you know anyone named Min-jae Park? The officer asked. Nyota's stomach dropped. She'd heard that name before. Whispered conversations at the hospital, stories exchanged between security guards and night shift workers. Min-jae Park. Ghost. The one they send when they want someone to disappear. No, she lied. But her hands were trembling, and the officer saw it. By 2 p.m., Nyota was sitting in a police station, answering questions she didn't have answers to. By 6 p.m., she'd called every friend, every contact, every place Kai might possibly be. By 8 p.m., her sister Tasha had arrived with casserole and the kind of useless sympathy that made everything worse. What do they want? Tasha asked, sitting on the worn couch in Nyota's living room. I don't know, Nyota whispered. Then maybe he ran. Maybe he got scared and... From who? Nyota's voice was sharp, desperate. From the Korean Mafia? From people who use children like they're disposable. Tasha went quiet. Nyota's phone sat on the coffee table, silent and accusing. She'd been staring at it for hours, willing it to ring, waiting for a demand, a negotiation, something that would tell her what came next. At 9:47 p.m. it vibrated. Unknown number. Nyota's hand hovered over the phone like it might bite her. She looked at Tasha, who was watching with an expression that mixed fear and confusion. Then she answered. Hello. Mrs. Johnson. The voice was male, calm, utterly devoid of emotion. I have your son. Nyota's breath caught in her throat. Is he alive? For now, the voice said. But that depends on whether you're willing to make a deal. Ghost returned to his apartment in the West Loop around 4 a.m. The penthouse was exactly as he'd left it. Minimalist, cold, containing nothing that suggested a human actually lived here. Black furniture. White walls. No photographs. No art. No indication of a life outside of work, because Ghost didn't have a life outside of work. He was a function, not a person. A tool the organization used and then put away until it was needed again. He made coffee, expensive beans from a roaster in Portland, shipped monthly to his private mailbox. The ritual was important. Without these small anchors to normalcy, he suspected he'd disappear entirely into the void that had been expanding inside him since he was 17 years old. Since the organization had destroyed everything he loved. He was thinking about this, about Kai, about the boy's terrified face when Ghost showed him the photograph of his mother, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Ghost stared at the screen for 3 full rings. No one outside the organization had this number. No one outside the organization could have this number. The SIM card was changed monthly, the phone was encrypted by specialists, and the contact list contained only names that existed in ledgers, not in reality. He answered. Hello. Min-jae Park. The voice was female, breathless, desperate. Every word trembling with the weight of a mother's terror. Is this... Are you the one who has my son? Ghost's coffee went very still in his hands. How did you get this number? He asked quietly. His voice had dropped to a register reserved for immediate threats. I don't care how it works. I don't care what he did. Please. The woman was crying now, openly, without shame. Please, I'm begging you. Just tell me what you want. Money. I can get money. I can get anything. Just tell me my son is alive. In the background, Ghost could hear the ambient wail of Chicago traffic, the endless hum of a city in motion. Put your phone down and go home, Ghost said. This isn't your concern. He's my child, the woman said, and her voice broke on the words in a way that made Ghost's chest tighten. He's my baby. Whatever he did, whatever he took, I'll pay it back. 1,000 times over. Please. Ghost should have hung up. Should have blocked the number. Should have reported the security breach to Sook. and let the organization handle the woman who'd somehow obtained intelligence on their fixer. But he didn't. Instead, he found himself asking, "What's your name?" There was a pause. He could hear her breathing, ragged and desperate. "Nyota," she said. "Nyota Johnson. And I'm telling you right now, I will do anything to get my son back alive. So please tell me what it takes." Ghost closed his eyes. He could see her, not her face but her shape. A woman in her mid-30s. Tired. Working jobs that didn't pay enough. Stretching pennies and building walls against a world that wanted to take everything from her. A woman who had failed to keep her son safe, and who was now willing to destroy herself to correct that failure. He'd seen it before. He'd created it before. And he'd sworn never to create it again. "You have a day to think about it," he heard himself say. His voice sounded foreign in his own ears, like someone else was speaking through him. "Tomorrow night, call this number back. If you still want to talk, we can discuss what your son's life is worth." He hung up before she could respond. Nyota didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table from 10 p.m. until dawn, cycling through 1,000 terrifying scenarios. What if they were serious about killing him? What if he was already dead? What if she called the police and it got him hurt? What if she didn't call the police and became complicit in a crime? The voices in her head were a chorus of terror, and she couldn't silence them. By 8 a.m. she'd made a decision. She would find this Min-jae Park. This enforcer who apparently held her son's life in his hands. And she would either kill him or convince him to let Kai go. There was no third option. There was no backup plan. There was only a mother at the end of her rope, and a man who controlled everything that mattered. It took her until 10 a.m. to track down an address. A friend of a friend worked security at a law firm that handled private matters for the city's underworld. One whispered conversation in a hospital bathroom stall, one promise of future favors, and she had a location. A high-rise in the West Loop. Penthouse. Very private. Very high up. The kind of place that existed outside the normal city, in a space reserved for people who transcended the usual rules. By 11:30 a.m., Nyota was in her car, wearing her best dress. A navy sheath that looked expensive even though it wasn't, with her hair pulled back tight. She looked like what she was. A desperate mother pretending to be something she wasn't. Someone respectable. Someone who belonged in a building like that. The building's security stopped her in the lobby. "I need to see Min-jae Park," she told the guard, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Her hands were sweating so badly her palms left marks on her purse. "No one gets upstairs without an appointment," the guard said, barely looking at her. "Tell him Nyota Johnson is here. Tell him it's about his offer. He'll want to see me." The guard looked skeptical, but something in her voice, some note of desperation that couldn't be faked, made him reach for the phone. He had a brief, quiet conversation, his eyes flickering toward Nyota with something that might have been respect. 15th floor, he said, gesturing toward the elevator. "Penthouse level. He'll meet you upstairs." The elevator ride felt like stepping into the mouth of a predator. When the doors opened, Ghost was standing in the hallway. In daylight, filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, he was even more terrifying than his voice suggested. Sharp features carved from something harder than flesh. Eyes that held no reflection, no light. A presence that seemed to compress the air around him, making it harder to breathe. He wore a simple black sweater and dress pants, and he looked at her the way a scientist looks at a specimen under glass. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, his voice exactly as she remembered it. "Please." He gestured toward the penthouse, and Nyota walked inside on legs that felt like they didn't belong to her body anymore. The apartment was enormous, cold, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Lake Michigan stretched beyond, vast and indifferent. The furniture was black. The walls were white. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, that suggested a human being actually lived here. "Your son is alive," Ghost said without preamble, without offering her a seat or water or any of the small courtesies people usually extended. "He's safe. For now." "I want to see him," Nyota demanded, though her voice betrayed her. It was shaking, fractured. "No. Then I don't believe you. He could be dead. He could be." "If he were dead, you wouldn't be here," Ghost said, and he moved toward the window. The organization would have no reason to let you call me. They would have closed this file and moved on to the next problem. He didn't turn to face her. He just stared out at the city below, at the millions of people going about their lives, unaware that kingdoms were rising and falling in the spaces between the buildings. There is one way he survives, Ghost said quietly. One way he gets to keep breathing past midnight tomorrow. Nyota stepped forward. Name it. Whatever it is, I'll do it. Ghost finally turned to face her. Someone in the organization betrayed us, he said. Someone very high up has been skimming money, selling information, destabilizing operations. Your son's debt was a setup, a way to draw out whoever is moving against the Kim family. He was bait. Nyota felt sick. The room tilted slightly. Then why would you? She trailed off, unable to finish. Because the bait that gets caught early doesn't serve its purpose, Ghost said. He was moving closer now, and Nyota realized she should be afraid. She should run. Instead, she stood her ground. Your son needs to survive long enough to be found by whoever is hunting him. When that happens, whoever they are will reveal themselves. And that's when we identify the traitor. And if he doesn't, Nyota whispered, if he gets caught before you find them, then the organization will do what it does, Ghost said. And you'll never see him again. Nyota's legs went weak, and she sank into a chair. This was the price of loving someone in a city like Chicago in a world like this. This was what happened when the underworld decided your child was useful. This was the moment where everything changed. What do you need from me? She asked. Ghost moved closer. In the afternoon light, she could see the exhaustion in his face. Not physical exhaustion, but something deeper. A spiritual emptiness that suggested he'd been dead for years, and no one had bothered to bury him. You'll be watched too, he said. The traitor will try to use you. They'll offer you money or protection, try to convince you to help your son escape my reach. When they do, you'll work with them. You want me to be bait too, Nyota said flatly. I want you to help me find a traitor, Ghost corrected. Your son's life depends on it. Nyota looked out at the city, at Chicago sprawling and indifferent, full of people making impossible choices, doing terrible things to survive. She thought about the 12 years she'd spent raising Kai alone, working double shifts, saying no to every luxury so he could have a safe home. And it had meant nothing. The world had reached in and stolen him anyway. If he dies, Nyota said slowly, if you fail to protect him, I'll make sure you never work again. I'll go to the police. I'll expose everything. I'll burn this entire organization to the ground, even if I go down with it. Ghost smiled. It was a terrible smile, devoid of warmth, containing only the acknowledgement of her threat. If Kai doesn't survive, Ghost said, then I become your tool. Whatever you want done, whoever you want hurt, whatever you want taken, I'll do it. The organization will disown me, and you'll have an enforcer with nothing left to lose. That's a powerful thing, Mrs. Johnson. He stepped closer and Nyota didn't flinch. She was past fear now. She was in the territory of absolute desperation, and there was a clarity that came with that. But we won't reach that point, Ghost continued, because you're going to trust me, and Kai is going to follow my instructions. And together we're going to catch a traitor. And then what? Nyota asked. Then your son goes free. And you'll never see me again. Nyota believed him. Ghost handed her a burner phone. A cheap Samsung with a single contact labeled only as Minjae. You don't call anyone else, he said. His voice had taken on the quality of absolute command. You don't tell anyone. Not your sister, not the police, not your priest or your doctor or your best friend. You work your shifts at the hospital. You go home. You wait. And when the traitor comes, and they will come, you answer my phone and you do exactly what I tell you to do. Nyota held the phone like it might burn her. How long? Hours. Maybe a day. They're already looking for Kai. Once they realize he's alive, that he didn't run far enough or fast enough, they'll move. And when they do, they'll come for you. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Is my son scared? Ghost was silent for so long that Nyota thought he wouldn't answer. Yes, he finally said. But he's alive. And that's more than most people can say when I'm done with them. It wasn't reassurance. But in that moment, with everything balanced on a knife's edge, it was enough. Nyota left the apartment. Ghost watched her go, then returned to the window and stared out at the city. Somewhere in Chicago, Kai Johnson was running. Somewhere in Chicago, the organization's trader was beginning to understand that the bait they'd set had caught something unexpected. A mother willing to betray her own soul to save her child. And somewhere in Ghost's chest, in the cold place where his heart used to be, something cracked. Just barely. Just enough to let the light in. If you're still listening right now, you need to know, type protect KAI in the comments so I know you're rooting for this mother. Tell me you see her. Tell me her love matters. And if you're new here, hit subscribe right now, because this is where everything gets darker. And I promise you won't be ready for what comes next. The burner phone sat on Nyota's nightstand like a loaded gun. She hadn't slept in 37 hours. The numbers on her clock glowed 3:47 a.m., and she was still awake, still staring at the phone, still waiting for it to vibrate with instructions she wasn't sure she could follow. Ghost had said the trader would come within hours. Maybe a day. That was 2 days ago. Nyota's apartment felt smaller now, claustrophobic. Every shadow held potential threat. Every sound from the hallway made her jump. She'd called in sick to the hospital, told her supervisor she had a family emergency. That was true at least. The rest was lies. Careful, measured lies designed to hide the fact that she was complicit in something that would destroy her if the police found out. Her sister Tasha had tried to visit yesterday. Nyota had locked the door and told her to go away. I need to be alone. That's what she'd said. Tasha hadn't understood, but she'd left. Nyota's phone had received 3 voicemails and 7 text messages from her. She hadn't answered any of them. The burner phone was the only one that mattered now. Nyota moved to the window and looked out at Chicago. It was 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, and the city was transitioning into that strange period between night and dawn when the streets belonged to no one. Night shift workers were heading home. Early commuters hadn't started yet. The world was empty, waiting, holding its breath. She thought about Kai. Where was he? Was he scared? Was he eating enough? Ghost had said he was safe, being watched, protected from a distance. But that wasn't the same as being home. That wasn't the same as being held. Nyota had raised her son alone for 16 years. She'd worked double shifts and come home with aching feet and a body that screamed for rest. She'd helped him with homework she barely understood. She'd taught him about respect and dignity, and what it meant to be a black man in a city that wanted to destroy him. She'd done everything right, and the world had reached in and stolen him anyway. At 4:23 a.m., the burner phone vibrated. Nyota's heart nearly stopped. She grabbed it with trembling hands. The text wasn't from Ghost. It was from an unknown number. Starbucks on Michigan Avenue. 6 a.m. Alone. Come or Kai dies. Nyota's hands went numb. She called Ghost's number. The contact labeled Min-jae. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. I told you not to call unless it was an emergency, Ghost said. His voice was cold, but underneath the cold was something else. Concern maybe. Or the shadow of it. Someone texted me, Nyota whispered. They know about Kai. They want to meet. There was a pause. She could hear him moving, the sound of him getting out of bed. The traitor, Ghost said. It wasn't a question. How do you know? Because I've been waiting for them to move. What did they say? Nyota told him. She read the text word for word, her voice shaking. Ghost was silent for a long moment. You're going to go, he said finally. But not alone. You said. I said you don't tell anyone. I didn't say I wouldn't be there. Ghost's voice had taken on a quality that was almost gentle. Almost. Mrs. Johnson, listen to me very carefully. Whoever is meeting you at 6 a.m., they believe you're desperate and isolated. They believe you'll do anything to save your son. That's your advantage. What's my disadvantage? Nyota asked. They're right, Ghost said. You will do anything. That makes you dangerous to yourself. So I'll be there and I'll be watching, and if this goes wrong, I'll handle it. How will you? Don't worry about how, Ghost said. Just be at Starbucks at 5:50 a.m. Order a coffee. Sit by the window. And don't look for me. Pretend I don't exist. He hung up. The Starbucks on Michigan Avenue was already crowded at 5:50 a.m. Nyota sat by the window with a black coffee she didn't drink, her leg bouncing with nervous energy. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, not trying to look expensive or impressive, just like a mother who'd been broken by worry. The barista had called out her name 3 times before she'd reacted, her mind too scattered to absorb the mundane. At 6:03 a.m., a woman slid into the seat across from her. She was Korean, probably in her late 40s, with the kind of face that had been hard before it became beautiful. Her hair was pulled back tight, and she wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Nyota made in a month. But it was her eyes that gave her away. They held the same cold calculation that ghosts did. "Nyota Johnson," the woman said. It wasn't a greeting. It was a confirmation. "Who are you?" Nyota asked. "Someone who can save your son," the woman said. She glanced around the Starbucks to make sure no one was listening. The coffee shop noise provided cover. "My name is Minister Lee. I work for the organization. Or rather, I did. Things are changing in Chicago, and Kai is caught in the middle of a war that's about to tear everything apart." Nyota's grip tightened on her coffee cup. "What war?" "The one between Minjae Park and the real power structure of the Kim family," Minister Lee said. "Ghost thinks he's protecting your son by using him as bait. What Ghost doesn't know is that he's being played by people much more intelligent than he is. People inside the organization who want him eliminated." "Why would they?" "Because Ghost has become a liability," Minister Lee interrupted. "He's too independent, too unpredictable, and he's starting to develop a conscience, which is very dangerous in our line of work. So they're using Kai to set a trap. When Ghost moves to protect the boy, they'll strike." Nyota felt the room tilt. "You're saying they'll kill him?" "I'm saying they're counting on it," Minister Lee said. "But there's another option. You can help me get Kai out of Chicago, out of the organization's reach entirely. I have people resources, a way to disappear both of you so completely that the Kim family will never find you." "Why would you do that?" Nyota asked. Every instinct screamed at her that this was a trap, that she should refuse, that she should run to Ghost and tell him everything. But she was also a mother, and a mother will listen to anyone who claims they can save her child. "Because I'm building something new," Minister Lee said. "An organization that doesn't destroy families, that doesn't use children as bait, that doesn't turn ordinary people into tools." She leaned forward. "I want Ghost, but I don't want to kill him. I want to turn him. And the only leverage I have is you." "What do you mean, turn him?" "Ghost is human beneath all that ice," Minister Lee said. "He's already starting to crack. You've seen it. I've seen it. Everyone in the organization has seen it. If I can offer him a way out, a way to save you and your son, he'll choose you over the Kim family. And when he does, he becomes mine." Nyota's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "I need to know Kai is alive," Nyota said. "I need proof." Minister Lee pulled out a phone and showed Nyota a video. It was Kai sitting in what looked like a warehouse, eating from a container of rice. He looked scared but unharmed. He looked alive. "He's safe," Minister Lee said. "For now. But that only lasts as long as Ghost remains useful. Once he's served his purpose, the organization will discard both of you." Nyota stared at the video, at her son's face, at the fear in his eyes. "What do you need me to do?" she asked quietly. "Keep Ghost close," Minister Lee said. "Gain his trust. Make him believe you're falling for his protection. And when the moment comes, when he's at his most vulnerable, you'll bring him to me." "He'll kill me if he finds out," Nyota whispered. "He'll protect you if he loves you," Minister Lee corrected. "And I think he's starting to. That's your strength, Mrs. Johnson. That's how you save your son." Minister Lee stood up to leave. "You have 24 hours to decide," she said. "After that, I move forward with or without your help. But if you're not on my side when I do, you and Kai will be collateral damage." She walked out of the Starbucks, and Nyota was alone again with her untouched coffee and a decision that would determine whether her son lived or died. Nyota didn't make it back to her apartment. Ghost was waiting for her in the parking garage, standing beside a black SUV with tinted windows. He'd changed clothes, black jeans, black hoodie, black everything. He looked less like an enforcer and more like a ghost that had solidified just enough to be dangerous. "Get in," he said. "How did you?" "I was watching. From the coffee shop across the street. I saw Minister Lee. I heard some of what she said. He opened the passenger door. Get in the car, Mrs. Johnson. We need to talk. Nyota's legs felt like they might give out, but she forced herself to move. She climbed into the SUV, and Ghost closed the door behind her with a soft click that felt like a coffin sealing shut. He didn't start the car. He just sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Minister Lee is one of the people behind the conspiracy, Ghost said quietly. She's been skimming money for 2 years, selling information to rival organizations, building her own faction within the Kim family with the intention of taking over. She's smart, dangerous, and she just offered you a way out. I didn't agree to anything, Nyota said quickly. I know, Ghost said. Because if you had, I would have killed her right there in the Starbucks. Nyota's breath caught in her throat. Ghost finally turned to look at her, and she saw something in his face that she'd never seen before. Not anger, not coldness, vulnerability, raw bleeding vulnerability. Listen to me very carefully, he said. Everything Minister Lee told you is partially true. That's what makes her dangerous. She's right that the organization plans to use Kai's situation to eliminate me. She's right that there are people inside the Kim family who want me gone. What she's wrong about is everything else. How do I know you're telling the truth? Nyota asked. You don't, Ghost said. That's the entire problem. You don't know who to trust. The organization wants you to be bait for me. Minister Lee wants you to be bait for the organization. And I want. He stopped. His jaw clenched so hard she thought his teeth might crack. What do you want? Nyota asked softly. Ghost closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was something different in them. Something that looked almost like pain. I want to get you and Kai out of this city alive, he said. I want to find the people who set this trap and make them pay. And I want to do it without using you as a weapon. Which means I need you to trust me. Not because I deserve it. Not because I've earned it. But because right now, I'm the only person in Chicago who has nothing to gain from destroying you. You're asking me to believe in you, Nyota said. I'm asking you to believe that I'm better than I used to be, Ghost said. That somewhere underneath all this darkness, I'm still capable of protecting something instead of destroying it. Nyota thought about the photograph he'd shown Kai. About how he'd used her image as a weapon. About how ruthless and cold he was. But she also thought about the crack in his voice right now. About the way his hands were shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. About the fact that he'd let Kai live instead of killing him. What happens next? She asked. Next we disappear, Ghost said. All 3 of us. I have a safe house outside the city. We go there, and we plan how to take down Minister Lee and the people backing her. And if I refuse? Nyota asked. Then you'll never see your son again, Ghost said simply. Because Minister Lee will kill him the moment she no longer needs him as leverage. And I won't be able to stop her. The safe house was 2 hours north of Chicago, nestled in the woods of southern Wisconsin. It looked like a forgotten hunting lodge. Weathered wood, overgrown property, the kind of place where someone could disappear and the world would never know. Ghost had driven in silence, Nyota sitting in the passenger seat. Neither of them speaking as Chicago fell away behind them. When they arrived, Kai was there. He stood in the doorway of the lodge, and Nyota's breath left her body. She was out of the SUV before Ghost could even turn off the engine, running toward her son with her heart in her throat. Kai wrapped his arms around her, and they stood there in the afternoon sun, holding each other like they were trying to fuse into a single being. I was so scared, Kai whispered into her hair. I know, baby. I know. But I'm here now. I'm here. Nyota could feel Ghost watching them from the SUV. His expression unreadable. She pulled back from Kai to look at him, really look at him. He was thin, scared but unharmed. Have you been okay? She asked, searching his face. Ghost kept me safe, Kai said. He showed me videos of you. He told me you were making a deal to save me. Kai looked confused. Why did he help us? Nyota didn't have an answer. Inside the lodge, Ghost prepared a simple dinner. Pasta, vegetables, nothing complicated. They ate in silence, the 3 of them arranged around a wooden table like a twisted family. Nyota watched Ghost watch Kai. Watch the way he made sure the boy had enough food, the way he asked if he was comfortable, the way he treated him with a gentleness that seemed impossible given what she knew about this man. After dinner, Ghost led them upstairs to bedrooms. He settled Kai in one room, then showed Nyota to another. There are clothes in the closet, he said. Toiletries in the bathroom. You'll be safe here. No one knows about this place except me. Why are you doing this? Nyota asked. Really? Ghost was silent for a long moment. Because I was like Kai once, he said finally. Young. Stupid. Trapped in a situation I didn't understand. And no one saved me. Everyone just used me. So when I see him, when I see you, I see a chance to be different. To be better. That's not an answer, Nyota said. I know, Ghost said. But it's the only one I have right now. He left her alone in the room. Nyota stood at the window and looked out at the Wisconsin woods. Somewhere out there, Minister Lee was planning her next move. Somewhere in Chicago, the Kim organization was tightening its net. And here, in this strange safe house, a mother and son had been given a temporary reprieve. It wouldn't last. Nothing ever did. But for tonight they were alive. For tonight they were together. And for tonight that was enough. If your heart just melted when Ghost showed his humanity, type Ghost cares in the comments. And if you think Nyota should trust him or run, tell me trust or run below. This story is getting darker. Subscribe now so you don't miss this where everything explodes. It was 2 a.m. when Nyota found Ghost on the lodge's back porch. He was smoking, something she hadn't seen him do before. A cigarette, expensive by the look of it, held between two fingers like a weapon he couldn't quite bring himself to use. He was staring out at the woods, at the darkness that stretched beyond the reach of the porch lights, and he looked like he was carrying the weight of every terrible thing he'd ever done. Nyota should have gone back to bed. Should have left him alone with his ghosts and his smoke. Instead, she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and stepped outside. Ghost didn't react. He'd probably sensed her before she'd even opened the door. Men like him didn't survive by being unaware. You should be asleep, he said quietly. So should you, Nyota replied. She moved to stand beside him, careful to keep distance between them. Not too close. Not yet. Kai's asleep. I heard him. He sounds peaceful. He's traumatized, Ghost said. He's sleeping because his body is shutting down to process what he's experienced. It's not peace. It's survival. Nyota flinched at his bluntness. Why did you really let him live? She asked. In the warehouse. When you first confronted him, you could have killed him. You had every reason to. The organization would have applauded. Ghost took a long drag on the cigarette. The ember glowed orange in the darkness. I was 17 when the Kim organization recruited me, he said finally. His voice was different now, older, more worn. I was running from a foster care system that didn't protect anyone. I was hungry and angry and stupid enough to believe that a criminal organization was my family. They told me I was special, that I had gifts, that I could be something important. He stubbed out the cigarette against the porch railing, leaving a small burn mark on the wood. They trained me for 3 years, he continued. Taught me how to kill, how to disappear, how to become the kind of person that other people feared. And when they thought I was ready, they gave me my first real job. What was it? Nyota asked. They told me to kill a boy who'd betrayed the organization, Ghost said. He was 16, younger than Kai, scared out of his mind. I remember his face, the way he begged me for mercy, the way he cried and asked me why I was doing this. And I killed him anyway, because that's what my family demanded. Nyota felt something crack inside her chest. After I killed him, I went home, Ghost said. I had a mother, a sister. They were waiting for me. My mother had dinner prepared. My sister was doing homework at the kitchen table. We were a family before I became Ghost. We were normal. He was quiet for a long moment. 3 days after I killed the boy, the organization told me they were going to kill my family, Ghost continued. Not as punishment. Not because they'd done anything wrong, but because I'd become too valuable. They wanted to ensure my loyalty was absolute. They wanted to make sure I had nothing to lose. So they killed my mother first. Made me watch. Then my sister. Then they gave me a choice. Disappear and become their perfect tool, or let them kill everyone else I'd ever known. Nyota's eyes filled with tears. I disappeared, Ghost said. I became Min-jae Park. I became Ghost. And I spent the next 11 years making sure I was so valuable to the organization that they could never replace me. So they could never use me the way they used me that night. And when you saw Kai? Nyota asked. I saw myself, Ghost said. A kid who didn't understand what he'd done. A kid who was about to pay the ultimate price for a mistake. And I realized that I'd spent 11 years becoming the monster that destroyed me. So I gave him a choice. I gave him something I never had. Nyota stepped closer to him. Without thinking about it, without planning it, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold, scarred, trembling slightly. You're not that monster anymore, she said. Yes, I am, Ghost said. But he didn't pull his hand away. I'm just trying to be less of one. The attack came at dawn. Ghost had been awake. He'd never actually slept, just rested in that state between consciousness and oblivion that men like him inhabited. He heard the vehicles approaching before their engines were even clearly audible. Heard the footsteps spreading out through the woods surrounding the lodge. He was out of bed and moving before the first shot was fired. Nyota! He shouted, kicking her bedroom door open. She was already awake, instinctively alert. Mothers were like that, their survival instincts never fully shut down. Get Kai. The basement. Now. What's happening? She asked, already moving. Minister Lee found us, Ghost said. He was pulling on his clothes, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Go. I'll buy you time. How much time? Nyota asked. Enough, Ghost said. It was a lie and they both knew it. Nyota ran to Kai's room and dragged her confused, terrified son toward the basement stairs. Behind them, the lodge erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through the wooden walls. Windows shattered. The sound of breaking glass and shattering would fill the air like a symphony of destruction. Ghost moved through the chaos with cold precision, firing from window to window, forcing the attackers to stay at distance. He could see them through the trees, maybe a dozen of them, heavily armed, coordinated. Minister Lee had brought serious firepower. This wasn't a kidnapping. This was an execution. Ghost retrieved a bag from a hidden compartment in his bedroom closet. Inside were 3 passports, new identities already prepared for escape. He'd always known this moment would come. Men like him didn't get happy endings. They got contingency plans. He made his way to the basement, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Nyota and Kai were huddled in the back corner, behind old furniture and abandoned boxes. Kai looked like he might throw up. Nyota's face was set in that expression of absolute determination that Ghost was beginning to recognize as her strongest feature. We have to go, Ghost said. Now. How? Nyota demanded. They're surrounding us. Not all of them, Ghost said. He moved to a boarded-up window at ground level. With a sharp tug, the boards came loose. There's a tunnel system under this lodge. Goes for about 200 yards. Comes out behind the tree line. We move fast, we get to the SUV, we disappear. Where do we go? Kai asked. His voice was shaking. Somewhere Minister Lee can't find us, Ghost said. He tossed the passports to Nyota. New names. New lives. Until this is finished. Gunfire tore through the ceiling above them. Dust and plaster rained down. Kai screamed. Go. Ghost pushed them toward the tunnel entrance. I'll slow them down. You'll die. Nyota shouted. Yes, Ghost said. Probably. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate, raw. A final assertion of his humanity before he went back into the darkness. Nyota kissed him back, and in that moment, everything she'd been afraid of crystallized into absolute certainty. She was going to lose him. Go, Ghost repeated, pulling back. Take care of Kai. Get out of Chicago. And when you're safe, remember that someone loved you enough to become a monster. Remember that there was good in me, even if no one else ever sees it. Ghost, Nyota started. He pushed her toward the tunnel. Now. Nyota grabbed Kai and ran into the darkness. Behind them, Ghost headed back upstairs. The lodge was falling apart around him. He could hear the attackers making their way through the structure, clearing rooms looking for targets. He'd wanted to be better than he was. He'd wanted to prove he was capable of protection instead of destruction. It looked like the universe had other plans. The SUV tore through the Wisconsin backroads with Nyota gripping the steering wheel and Kai slumped in the passenger seat, pale and shaking. They'd made it out. Ghost's tunnel had led exactly where he'd said it would. The SUV had been in a garage, keys in the ignition, enough cash in the glove compartment to get them somewhere safe. But safe was becoming a more complicated concept with every mile they put between themselves and that burning lodge. "Talk to me," Nyota said, keeping her eyes on the road. "What happened? How did Minister Lee know where we were?" Kai was silent for a long moment. "I told her," he said finally. Nyota's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What?" "Before Ghost took me to the safe house," Kai said quietly. "When I was in the warehouse, Minister Lee came to see me," she said. "She said she wanted to help me, that she was going to get me out of this situation. She asked me questions about Ghost, about his patterns, about where he might take me." "And you told her?" "I didn't know." Kai's voice cracked. "I didn't know she was using me. I thought she was trying to help. I thought." He broke down into sobs. "I got Ghost caught. Mom, I got him killed." Nyota's chest constricted, but she forced herself to focus. "We don't know he's dead. Ghost is." "Ghost is a lot of things," Kai interrupted. "But he's not a miracle worker. You saw how many people came. You heard the gunfire. He's gone." The words landed like bullets. But there was something else in Kai's voice. Something he wasn't saying. "What else?" Nyota asked. "What else did Minister Lee tell you?" Kai was quiet for so long that Nyota thought he wouldn't answer. "She told me why I was really targeted," Kai said finally. "It wasn't random, Mom. It wasn't just because I owed money," she said. "She said the organization was using me because of you." "Me?" Nyota's voice was barely a whisper. "Your job at Northwestern Memorial," Kai said. "You work with medical records. You have access to patient files. Minister Lee said the organization wanted to control someone who could manipulate records, and they were using me as leverage to get you to cooperate." Nyota's mind was reeling. She'd thought this was about Kai's debt. She'd thought she was saving her son from the consequences of his own mistake. But the whole thing had been a setup from the beginning. "Ghost knew," Kai continued. "That's why he was protecting me so carefully. Not just because he had a conscience, but because he was using me as bait too. He was waiting for whoever was hunting me to reveal themselves. And when they did, when Minister Lee made her move, it would expose her conspiracy. So Ghost was using both of us," Nyota said flatly. "No," Kai said. "At the end, when he was fighting Minister Lee's people, he wasn't thinking like an enforcer. He was thinking like someone who actually cared. He loved you, Mom. I saw it. And he loved me in his own weird ghost way. That's why he stayed behind. That's why he told us to run." Nyota felt something inside her break and reform into a different shape. Grief, love, rage and determination all twisted together into something that felt a lot like purpose. "We're not running anymore," she said. She pulled off the highway and into an abandoned parking lot. She turned to face her son. "Tell me everything Minister Lee said. Every detail. Because we're going to go back. We're going to find out what happened to Ghost. And if he's alive, we're going to save him. And if he's not, then what?" Kai asked. "Then we burn it all down," Nyota said. "Every single person who hurt him. Every person who hurt you. The entire Kim organization. All of it." Kai stared at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, Mom. I'm in." Nyota's phone, the burner Ghost had given her, buzzed 3 hours later. She was driving through Michigan, heading toward Detroit, when the text came through. Not from Ghost. From an unknown number. Rooftop of the Palmer House Hotel, Chicago. Midnight. Come alone or Minjae dies. "It's a trap," Kai said immediately. "It has to be." "Probably," Nyota said. But she was already turning the SUV around, heading back toward Chicago. "Mom, no." Ghost said. "Ghost said to save myself and you," Nyota interrupted. "I did that. Now I'm making my own choice." She drove in silence, her mind working through scenarios, calculating odds. By the time she reached downtown Chicago, night had fallen. The city sparkled with lights and possibility and danger. The Palmer House Hotel loomed against the darkness, historic and imposing. Nyota parked 3 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance. She changed clothes. Dark jeans, dark jacket, her hair pulled back tight. She looked like what she was, a woman on a mission. The service elevator took her to the roof. When the doors opened, she found Ghost. He was alive. Bruised, bleeding from a wound on his shoulder, one arm hanging at an odd angle like it might be broken. But alive. And standing next to him, holding a gun to his head, was someone Nyota didn't recognize, a young Asian man, probably in his early 30s, with the kind of cold eyes that suggested he'd been trained by the same organization that trained Ghost. "Hello, Mrs. Johnson," the man said. His accent was pure soul. His voice was familiar. "Who are you?" Nyota asked. "My name is Gene Park," the man said. "I'm Minji's older brother." Nyota's blood went cold. "You've been dead for 11 years, Ghost said, his voice hoarse. "I watched them kill you." "They wanted you to think that," Gene said. "They wanted you isolated, broken, loyal. So they faked my death and exiled me to Japan. But I've been coming back, slowly building power, waiting for the right moment to reclaim everything they stole from me." "And Minister Lee?" Nyota asked. "Is my partner," Gene said. "We're taking over the Kim organization. We're cleaning it out, reorganizing it, building something better. But first, we need to eliminate the wild cards." He pressed the gun harder against Ghost's temple. "Min-jae, my beloved brother," Gene continued. "You were always the problem. Too talented. Too unpredictable. Too capable of becoming a threat. So I'm going to do what the organization couldn't. I'm going to end you. And I'm going to do it in front of the woman you love, so she understands the cost of opposing us." "Kai," Nyota said suddenly. "My son. You used him as bait." "I trained him," Gene said. "Made him part of our organization. Showed him that family and loyalty matter more than anything else. Minister Lee recruited him to get close to you. And when the time was right, he was supposed to bring you to us." "But he didn't," Nyota said. "No," Gene said. "Because my brother corrupted him with his weakness. With his sudden belief in redemption." Ghost's eyes met Nyota's across the rooftop. "I'm sorry," he said. "I tried." The shot echoed across Chicago. "Who got shot? Gene? Ghost? Tell me in the comments right now. And if you thought this story was going one direction and it just went completely different, hit subscribe. This is peak Blasian Mafia thriller energy. Don't miss it. The bullet didn't hit Ghost. It hit Gene. The shot came from the stairwell access door. A clean trajectory, professional execution. Jin's body jerked backward, the gun falling from his hand. He collapsed to the rooftop concrete, blood spreading across his white shirt like a flower blooming in time-lapse. Standing in the doorway, smoking gun still raised, was Minister Lee. "Gene," she said coldly, "was becoming a liability." Ghost dropped to the ground beside his brother, instinct overriding everything else. Jin's eyes were open, unfocused, searching for meaning in a universe that had just stopped making sense. "Why?" Ghost asked, his voice raw. "He was your partner." "He was a fool," Minister Lee said. She didn't lower the gun. "He wanted to rebuild the Kim family into something more noble. Wanted to eliminate corruption and create honor. Can you imagine? In this business, honor is death." She gestured to Nyota. "Get away from him, Mrs. Johnson. You and I have business to discuss." Nyota didn't move. She was staring at Gene, at this ghost who'd become real, at the blood pooling beneath him, at Ghost cradling his brother like he might be able to put him back together through sheer force of will. "He's my brother," Ghost said. "He's alive. He was going to destroy everything we built," Minister Lee interrupted. "The Kim organization doesn't need salvation. It needs streamlining. It needs ruthlessness. And it needs you, Min-jae. Without you, the whole structure collapses." Gene coughed, blood speckling his lips. His hand reached out, grabbing Ghost's jacket. "I came back." Gene gasped. "I came back to save you." "I know," Ghost said. "I know, Hyung. I know. Everything they told you. About that night. It was a lie. Jin's words were becoming harder to hear. Mom. And sister. They tried to protect me. The organization found out. They killed us all. But I survived. I was supposed to bring you back. Ghost's entire body went rigid. What are you talking about? He asked. 11 years, Jean whispered. 11 years I've been working to get you out. To prove to you that redemption is possible. That you don't have to be their tool forever. Jin's eyes went still. Ghost held his dead brother in his arms, and something inside him shattered. Not the cold, controlled part that was Ghost the enforcer, but the human part underneath. The part that had been screaming for 11 years, trapped behind ice. He began to cry. Not silently. Not with restraint. Full, racking sobs that came from the deepest part of his chest. The part that remembered being 17 years old and believing his family was real. Nyota moved forward, reaching out to touch him, but Minister Lee stepped in front of her. Not yet, Minister Lee said. Let him grieve. Let him understand what he's lost. And then let him choose. By the time Ghost's tears stopped, the sky was beginning to lighten toward dawn. He laid Jin's body on the cold concrete, closed his eyes, and whispered something in Korean that Nyota couldn't understand. Then he stood, turned to face Minister Lee, and his expression had changed completely. The ice was back. But it was different now, not cold but sharp. Not empty but full of purpose. You killed him, Ghost said quietly. I saved him from being a burden, Minister Lee replied. Now you can focus on what matters, rebuilding the organization in my image. Is that what you think? Ghost asked. He took a step toward her. That I'm going to work for you now? That Jin's death is the final thing that ties me to the organization. I know it is, Minister Lee said. Because I know what you are, Min-jae. You're not capable of anything else. You're a tool. A weapon. And I control the trigger. Ghost smiled. It was a terrible smile. The smile of someone who just realized they had nothing left to lose. No, he said. I'm not. He moved. His hand shot out and Minister Lee fired the gun, but Ghost had already shifted, a lateral roll that took him out of the bullet's trajectory. He came up close to her, disarmed her in a single fluid motion, and drove her backward against the stairwell door. You were right about one thing, Ghost said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. I am a weapon. But I'm not your weapon. I'm not anyone's weapon anymore. He didn't kill her. Instead, he took the gun and handed it to Nyota. Your choice, he said. Minister Lee's face went pale. You're making a mistake. The organization will hunt you forever. They'll kill everyone you love. They'll already did that, Nyota said quietly. She was holding the gun with steady hands, and her finger was moving toward the trigger. But Ghost put his hand over hers, lowering the weapon. No, he said. We're not like them anymore. We can't be. Nyota looked at him, and Ghost saw the conflict written across her face. The rage. The thirst for justice. The part of her that wanted Minister Lee to suffer the way her son had suffered. The way Ghost had suffered. She tried to kill you, Nyota said. I know, Ghost replied. But killing her won't bring Jean back. It won't undo what's already been done. It will just add more blood to this story. Nyota lowered the gun. Minister Lee started backing away toward the stairwell. You're weak, she spat. Both of you. That's why you'll lose. That's why the organization will crush you. Maybe, Ghost said. But at least we'll be human when it happens. He and Nyota watched her disappear down the stairwell. They could hear her footsteps echoing. Then the sound of a door slamming. We need to go, Ghost said. She'll call for reinforcements. We have maybe 20 minutes before this place is swarming with operatives. But Nyota wasn't moving. She was staring at him with an intensity that made his heart stop. Why did you do that? She asked. Why did you stop me from killing her? Because you're not a killer, Ghost said. And I wanted you to know the difference between justice and revenge. Which one is this? Nyota asked, gesturing to the gun she was still holding. Neither, Ghost said. This is survival. This is choosing to be better than the people hunting us. This is, he stepped closer to her. This is love. He kissed her then on a Chicago rooftop at dawn, with his dead brother lying meters away and the organization hunting them both. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate, raw, a claiming of something real in a world that had tried to destroy them both. When they broke apart, Nyota was crying. "We're not going to survive this," she whispered. "No," Ghost agreed. "Probably not. But we're going to try. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll take enough of them down that Kai will have a better world than we did." They made it out of Chicago with minutes to spare. Ghost had contacts, safe houses scattered across the Midwest, resources hidden in places only he knew about. They drove north again, this time toward Wisconsin, to a different location. A farmhouse isolated, equipped with everything they'd need. Kai was waiting for them. He threw his arms around his mother, and Nyota held him like she'd never let him go. Ghost stood apart, giving them space, but Kai pulled away and walked over to him. "You're alive," Kai said simply. "Yes," Ghost replied. "And my uncle?" Kai asked, even though he already knew the answer from their faces. "Gone," Ghost said. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Kai said. "He saved you. That's what family does." Something in Ghost's chest loosened. Not fully, never fully, but enough to breathe a little easier. They spent the next 3 days planning. Ghost had resources, money, weapons, contacts within law enforcement and the business community. But more importantly, he had something the organization didn't. He had people who loved him. Nyota moved through the farmhouse like she was in her element now. Not frightened but focused. She made calls using burner phones, reached out to hospital administrators and city officials, people in positions of power who were tired of the Korean Mafia's influence. Kai worked with Ghost, learning to use the weapons, learning the intelligence operation. Not because he'd become a killer, but because he understood now what it meant to fight for something that mattered. "How did you do this?" Kai asked one night, watching Ghost clean a rifle with mechanical precision. "How did you survive being their tool for 11 years? "I didn't survive," Ghost said. "I just learned how to be dead while still breathing." "And now?" Kai asked. "Now I'm learning how to be alive," Ghost said. He looked over at where Nyota was sleeping on the couch, exhausted from hours of planning. "Now I have a reason to." On the 3rd day, Ghost made a call to Suk, the organization's handler who'd first recruited him. "I'm coming in," he said. "Where are you?" Suk asked immediately. "Doesn't matter," Ghost said. "Meet me at the warehouse on the south side. Midnight. Come alone." "This is a trap," Suk said. "Yes," Ghost agreed. "But you'll come anyway. Because you can't resist knowing what I want." He hung up. Nyota grabbed his arm. "You can't go alone. It's suicide." "I know," Ghost said. "That's why you and Kai will be in position with sniper rifles. If I die, you make sure Suk dies too. Then you disappear and you live." "No," Nyota said fiercely. "No, I'm not going to." Ghost kissed her to silence her. "Listen to me. The organization won't stop hunting us unless they think I'm a liability. Unless they think killing me matters more than keeping me alive. So I'm going to give them that. I'm going to walk into that warehouse and tell Suk exactly what they need to hear." "Which is?" Nyota asked. "That I've turned against them," Ghost said. "That I'm betraying the organization. That I'm going to expose everything." "And they'll kill you," Nyota said. "Yes," Ghost said. "But in that moment when they're focused on killing me, you and Kai will take down Suk and whoever she brings. You'll cut off the head of the organization. And with Jin's network and the people you've contacted, you'll dismantle the rest." Nyota shook her head. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Ghost said. "I've spent 11 years being their weapon. The only way I can stop being their weapon is to become useless to them. And the only way to do that is to die," Nyota finished. "To be reborn," Ghost corrected. "I die as Min-jae Park, Ghost the Enforcer. And whatever comes after, whatever happens in that warehouse, I'll be something else. Something better." Midnight came. Ghost walked into the abandoned warehouse on the south side of Chicago, with nothing but the knowledge that he was probably walking into his death. The structure was cavernous, filled with shadows, perfect for an ambush. Suk was waiting, but she wasn't alone. She'd brought 6 operatives, all heavily armed, all professional. Ghost smiled at the sight of them. "You didn't trust me," he said. "Should I have?" Suk asked. She was a small woman, probably in her 50s, with gray streaking her black hair. She'd been running the organization's Chicago operation for 20 years. She'd trained Ghost. "No," Ghost said. "But I'm disappointed anyway." "You've gone soft," Sook said coldly. "The woman and the boy have corrupted you. Made you weak. The organization is better off without you." "I agree," Ghost said. "But I'm not going to let you kill me without making you pay for it." He didn't move. Didn't reach for a weapon. Just stood there, calm and centered, and Nyota realized what he was doing. He was giving them a target. Sook nodded to one of her operatives, and the man raised his gun. Through the rifle scope, Nyota could see the moment the man's finger tightened on the trigger. She'd been waiting for this moment for 3 days. Her shot came first. The operative's head snapped back and he fell. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Gunfire, screaming, confusion. Ghost moved then with the fluidity of a predator, taking down operatives faster than Nyota could track. But Sook was running. "Stay with Ghost," Kai shouted into the radio. He was already abandoning his position, moving to intercept Sook before she could escape. Nyota watched Ghost through the scope. He was bleeding. A wound on his side, another on his arm. But he was moving, fighting, staying alive. The remaining operatives were falling, taken down by Ghost or by Nyota's careful shots from her position above. Then it was just Sook. Kai had her cornered, but he was hesitating. She was an old woman, defenseless, and Kai hadn't been trained enough to overcome his humanity. "Do it," Ghost said, appearing beside Kai. He was covered in blood, barely standing. "Do it, or she'll hunt you forever." Kai looked at Ghost, then at Sook. "No," Kai said. "We're not like them." He lowered his weapon. Sook ran. By the time the police arrived, called by Nyota using the contacts Ghost had given her, Sook was gone, and the warehouse contained only a group of people who just started a war they might not survive. 3 weeks later, Nyota sat in a small apartment in Toronto with Ghost and Kai. The organization was in chaos. Sook had survived and disappeared, but without leadership, without Ghost, without unified purpose, the Kim family was fracturing. Other organizations were moving in, trying to take territory. The chaos they created would ripple through Chicago's underworld for years. "We need to move again," Ghost said. He was healing but slowly. The bullet wound in his side had been close to fatal. "I know," Nyota said. She was holding a Canadian passport with a new name. Myachin. She'd become someone new just like Ghost had all those years ago. "But not tonight," Ghost said. He took her hand. "Tonight we rest." Kai was in the other room doing homework, actual homework for an actual school. He'd made the decision to try to be normal, or at least as normal as possible given everything. Nyota's sister Tasha had agreed to take him in, to give him some semblance of a stable life. The goodbye had been hard but necessary. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Nyota asked Ghost. "Letting Sook escape? Not killing her." "I think we did the only thing we could live with," Ghost said. "And that's the most important thing now. Learning how to live." He pulled her close, and they sat together in the Toronto darkness. Two people who'd been broken by the world and had somehow found a way to rebuild themselves. "I love you," Nyota said. "I want you to know that. No matter what happens, no matter where we go, I love you." "I know," Ghost said. "That's the only reason I'm still alive." Through the window, Toronto glittered like a city full of possibilities. Somewhere in Chicago, the organization was tearing itself apart. Somewhere in Wisconsin, Jin's grave was being visited by ghosts and memories. But here in this small apartment, something new was growing. Not happiness exactly, they were too broken for that. But something like hope. Something like a future that didn't involve blood and death and endless running. Something like love. If you believe they could actually escape and find peace, type hope in the comments. If you think the organization will find them again, type Hunter. Either way, this is coming and everything changes. Subscribe now so you don't miss the ending that will haunt you. This story isn't over. Not even close. 6 months later, Nyota was teaching at a community center in Toronto. She'd taken the name Maya Chan, and she built a life teaching administrative skills to young people who wanted out of their circumstances. It was quiet work, meaningful work, the kind of thing that felt like redemption in small doses. Ghost was working security, legitimate security for a hotel downtown. His Korean accent had become Canadian. His movements had become less lethal and more protective. He was learning slowly how to be a human being instead of a weapon. Kai had enrolled in community college. He was studying business, trying to become something that wouldn't require looking over his shoulder every 5 seconds. He called his mother Nyota now, and Nyota had stopped trying to correct him. They'd both changed so much that the old names didn't fit anymore. It was the kind of life they'd prayed for, which meant it couldn't last. The text came through on a burner phone that Ghost kept hidden. A phone no one was supposed to know about. A single message from an unknown number. They found you. 48 hours. Ghost destroyed the phone immediately. We have to move, he told Nyota that night. They were in their apartment, the one they decorated together with simple furniture and photographs they'd taken themselves. Normal things. Human things. Where? Nyota asked, though she already knew the answer. Anywhere but here, Ghost said. The organization has resources we can't imagine. If they know where we are, how do they know? Nyota demanded. We were careful. We changed everything. Sook, Ghost said quietly. She never stopped hunting. She rebuilt the organization from the ground up, and the first thing she did was put every resource into finding us. She's been patient, strategic. She knows we'll eventually make a mistake. What mistake did we make? Nyota asked. We got happy, Ghost said. That was the mistake. We thought we could have a normal life. We thought the organization would forget about us. We thought Jin's sacrifice meant something. Nyota grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. Jin's sacrifice did mean something, she said fiercely. It meant we got to live. It meant Kai got to go to college and be normal. It meant we had 6 months of peace. That means something, Minjae. That means everything. Ghost kissed her, and for a moment, the weight of the world lifted. Then Kai burst through the apartment door. We have a problem, he said. He was out of breath, terrified, but there was something else in his face. Determination. The look of someone who'd finally understood what he was capable of. I got a call from someone at the organization. They're offering me a choice. What choice? Ghost asked immediately. They want me to deliver you, Kai said. In exchange, they'll let Nyota and me go. Free, clear, no hunting. They just want you. The silence that followed was deafening. Absolutely not, Nyota said. We don't have another option, Kai said. They've found us. Sook is moving operatives into Toronto as we speak. Within 48 hours, this entire city will be hunting us. We can't run. We can't hide. But we can end this. By sacrificing me, Ghost said. Yes, Kai said, and he looked Ghost in the eye. By sacrificing you. The way you sacrificed yourself at the warehouse. The way my uncle sacrificed himself on that rooftop. The way people who love us sacrifice themselves to protect us. It's your turn to let someone protect you. They argued through the night. Nyota refused. She would not lose Ghost. She would not let Kai trade his soul for survival. But Ghost was quiet, thinking, understanding the chess game that had been unfolding for months. He's right, Ghost finally said. No, Nyota said immediately. He's right, Ghost repeated. The only way this ends is if one of us becomes the sacrifice. The organization needs to believe they've won. They need to believe they've taken their revenge. If I give them that, if I walk into that meeting and I let them think they're killing me, it ends. It doesn't end, Nyota said. It ends you. I was already dead, Ghost said. I've been dead for 11 years. You gave me 6 months to be alive. That's more than I ever deserved. I deserve more, Nyota said, and her voice broke. I deserve a lifetime with you. Kai deserves to have someone who's shown him that redemption is possible. The world deserves. The world doesn't care about me, Ghost said gently. But you do. And that's all that matters. Kai stepped forward. There's another option, he said. I've been working on something. Something that might give us a third way. He pulled out a laptop and showed them what he'd been building. A digital dossier containing years of evidence against the Kim organization. Bank records, evidence of murders, connections to corrupt politicians, everything. He'd been collecting it systematically since they arrived in Toronto, using Ghost's contacts and his own growing technical skills. If this gets released, Kai said, the organization falls. Law enforcement can't ignore this kind of evidence. Suk goes to prison. The whole structure collapses. How long to release it? Ghost asked. I can do it in an hour, Kai said. But there's a catch. Once I release this, the organization will know. They'll accelerate their timeline. They'll come for all of us immediately. Ghost and Nyota exchanged a look. Do it, Ghost said. Kai's fingers flew across the keyboard. He was routing the data through multiple channels, news organizations, law enforcement agencies, international crime watchdogs. By the time he was finished, the Kim organization's 60 years of secrets were being exposed to the world simultaneously. The phone calls started coming within minutes. Suk's voice was ice cold when Ghost answered. What have you done? I've freed myself, Ghost said calmly. And everyone else you've been holding hostage. You've made a fatal mistake, Suk said. I'm coming for you, personally. And when I find you, I'm going to make you understand what betrayal costs. I know what betrayal costs, Ghost said. It cost my brother his life. Cost me my humanity. But at least now it's costing the organization everything. He hung up. They didn't run. Instead, they chose the location. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Toronto. The kind of place where ghosts felt at home. Ghosts spent the day preparing, setting traps, positioning themselves for maximum advantage. By midnight, Suk arrived with 24 operatives. It was a war, but not the kind Ghost had expected. The police came at the same time Suk did. Federal agents, local law enforcement, international crime task forces. The evidence Kai had released had triggered an immediate investigation, and Suk's movement of armed operatives into Canada had been tracked by 3 different agencies. The warehouse became a battleground between the organization and the law. Ghost moved through the chaos with Nyota and Kai, not fighting so much as surviving. But Suk found him, of course she did. She'd been hunting him for months. She had a gun, and her eyes held the promise of death. 11 years, Suk said. 11 years I trained you, shaped you, made you into the perfect weapon. And you threw it all away for what? A woman? A boy? Love. Yes, Ghost said simply. Suk fired. The bullet caught Ghost in the shoulder, spinning him backward. He fell and Nyota screamed, not with fear but with rage. She launched herself at Suk, and the 2 women fought with a fury that had nothing to do with training and everything to do with protecting what they loved. Suk was better trained, but Nyota was fighting for her son's life, and that made her unstoppable. When it was over, Suk was on the ground, and federal agents were swarming the warehouse. The hospital room was white and cold and smelled like antiseptic. Ghost woke to find Nyota sitting in a chair beside his bed, asleep, her hand resting on his. Her face was bruised, her arm was in a cast, but she was alive. The gunshot wound had missed vital organs, barely. Ghost had lost a lot of blood, but he would survive. He would live. When Nyota woke, she didn't say anything. She just cried and held him like she was trying to merge their bodies into a single being. Kai? Ghost asked. Safe, Nyota said. Police took statements. He's cooperating with the investigation. The evidence he released, it's bringing down the entire organization. Suk is in custody. The Kim family is being dismantled. And us? Ghost asked. We're free, Nyota said. For the first time we're actually free. 1 year later, Nyota stood in front of a class of 20 students at the community center. They were kids from rough backgrounds, gang members, trafficking victims, people the system had failed. She was teaching them that there was another way. That you could leave the life. That redemption was possible. Ghost watched from the back of the classroom, and their eyes met across the room. He smiled, a real smile, not the cold thing he used to wear. Kai had graduated from community college and was working with law enforcement, helping other victims escape criminal organizations. He'd become the bridge between the world of crime and the world of justice, using everything he'd learned to help people who were trapped like he had been. The organization was gone. Not completely, crime never dies, but the Kim family no longer controlled Chicago or Toronto. What remained was fragmented, powerless, a ghost of what it had been. Ghost and Nyota didn't marry. They didn't need the legal document to prove what they already knew. They lived together in a small apartment. They made love in the dark. They held each other when the nightmares came. Nyota still had dreams about that warehouse. Ghost still woke up tasting blood. But they had each other, and they had a future that didn't involve running. One night, lying in bed, Nyota asked Ghost, "Do you regret it? Any of it?" Ghost thought about the question carefully. "I regret that we had to lose so much to find each other," he said. "But I don't regret the finding. I don't regret choosing to be human instead of being a weapon. I don't regret you." "Good," Nyota said, and she kissed him. In the darkness, two broken people had found a way to heal each other. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. And in a world that had tried so hard to destroy them, genuine was enough. If this story made you believe that love can break the cycle of violence, type redeemed in the comments. If you cried at the ending, type broken, so I know I got your heart. This is one of our most powerful Blasian Mafia stories. Share it with someone who needs to believe in redemption. And subscribe for more Afro-Korean stories that will wreck your soul in the best way.